Ms. Denise Phua.
So I stand in support of the Adoption of Children Bill. The last substantial amendment to the Act was in 1985, almost 40 years ago. The recommended increase from 12 sections to 75 sections in the proposed amendments is testament to the need to update this legislation. In addition, Singapore's birth and fertility rate has been declining, and adoption is one of the top options by couples who aspire parenthood. Adoption is thus a matter of interest to our society. Adoption is clearly a serious matter, and the adoption order granted by the court is in effect a termination of the legal relationship between a child and his or her biological parents. And adoption means transferring all rights and responsibilities in caring for the child to the adoptive parents. I wish to touch on matters relating to three key stakeholder groups: the children to be adopted, the adoptive parents, and the adoption agencies. First, the voice of the child. I fully agree with the ministry's undergirding principle behind this suite of amendments in the bill, that the top priority is to guard the welfare of the child. Now, many of the stakeholders involved in the adoption process are adults, prospective adopters, biological parents, adoption agency operators. But the person that is most impacted remains to be the child who is up for adoption. My question to the minister is, therefore, how the voice of the child can be better sought and heard. Now, all the names I use here on are not the real names of the persons involved, but many of them are people I know, and all of them are people I know. Now, in the case of one of my young teenage residents, I call him Wing, the stress and uncertainty he endured during the adoption process was very hard for him. Wing's biological father in a foreign country had abused both him and his mother. His mother remarried a Singaporean who discovered the option of adoption only after quite a long period of appeals to agencies and then through the Member of Parliament, to me, the MP. Now, throughout the period of adoption, Wing, the young man, expressed great fear and anxiety of being rejected in this adoption application and being sent back to his home country. Wing really wanted to reside in Singapore with his mom and stepfather and wants to serve national service when it's time. He wants to become a Singaporean. I'm so glad he is one now. Another young resident, QH, had to return to China to fend for himself at age 21, whilst his mother, his biological mother, remained in Singapore with his biological half-brother and Singaporean stepfather. I supported part of his education because fees were very high for him when he was a foreigner here. And I often wish he could have become one of us, one of Singapore's sons. And one of my former student, Boon, a Singaporean child with special needs, who was fostered as a toddler because he was abandoned until he's 21 through the ministry's arrangement. Could Boon have been put up for adoption earlier? Because he was like fostered for more than a decade. And how long, therefore, would it take under the bill, the new act, if approved, to propose and facilitate the adoption of fostered children like Boon, who were abandoned from young? So, sir, if the top priority for the bill is for the welfare of the child, there must be found ways by which the process incorporates the voice of the child to be adopted. Next, on the voice of the adoptive parents. In the process of preparing this speech, I spoke to a number of adoptive parents who had walked the journey. Now, there are usually two main areas of concerns. Two main areas of concern. One, the long administrative process, and second, the unevenness of available information for them to make informed decisions. The process of adoption currently involves many steps, from pre-adoption briefing to home assessment study, to identify agent, to identify a child for adoption, to application of dependents passed for a foreign child, to approval by the family court, to sending the adoption order to ICA for a birth cert, to apply for a Singapore citizenship, and in the case of China, several post-adoption reporting. Yen, a happy adoptive mother now who adopted a baby from an ASEAN country, had to wait for a dependent pass to be approved before she can spend time with the child, even after passing a very stringent home report assessment. Now that was step 7 of, I think, 15 steps in the ministry's portal and when I did the search. Mothers like Yen asked if the new process would further lengthen the anxiety of bona fide prospective adopters. Now, how do the steps in the new process vary in terms of the number of steps, the quantity, the duration, and complexity? How can the process be made more efficient while ensuring, of course, ensuring the welfare of the child remains a priority? So whilst essential steps to assess and prepare prospective adopters are made mandatory, which I fully support, are there other steps that can be consolidated or simplified and the flow of information across agencies be better shared? Now, the second concern of adoptive parents is that of the uneven level of awareness amongst them. In the words of one parent who spoke to me, quote, "For us, the official road sort of ended after MSF officially gave us the certification to become adoptive parents," unquote. Another one told me, quote, "After the home study report was done, we did not know where to go to look for the babies. They depended on the luck of the draw to land the right lawyer to help them, the right social worker, the right adoption agency." Several adoptive parents cited their search of agencies to be daunting and quoted some agencies to be, quote, "dubious and dodgy." While the Clause 10 of the bill provides for the UEN, or unique entity number, and address of the place of business of every authorized adoption agency to be published, one wonders if that is sufficient. Surely much more could be done to facilitate the access of the needed information to help potential adoptive parents make better informed decisions and to cut short the process. Lastly, on the voice of the adoption agencies, it is obvious from the feedback from people the parents or adoptive parents I spoke to, not all adoption agencies are equally experienced, ethical, and effective. How will the ministry evaluate and identify appropriate agencies? How can the better ones that I think Deputy Speaker spoke about just now, how can the better ones be recognized and engaged? For the sustainability of the good players in the market, whether for-profit or not, financial viability is necessary. Can there therefore be some way to help them? Can there be fee guidelines such as that issued by the Ministry of Health for clinics so that there's an acceptable range of service fees? This will ensure that adoption agencies with good record get to remain in the business and build on their strength to support more families effectively. So, sir, the Adoption of Children Bill is overdue and is well worth our support. I seek the ministry's considered responses to the concerns I've raised for the child, the adoptive parents, and the adoptive agencies. And thank you so much for doing the good work.